Okay, thank you. So again, in English language, I am Ljubica Kodic. I teach legal English and legal German at the Faculty of Law Osijek, and I also teach an elective course at the Faculty of Humanities called Translation in the German legal language. And this paper, in fact, is a product of cooperation with one of my students who wrote her diploma paper, and we used her research part and deepened this analysis, and I'm going to present it today. So I'm going to share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, I'd like to put it big screen. Okay, so our topic is contrastive analysis of the machine translation of EU legal text, and here you can see the structure of my presentation. At first, a short introduction on specific features of the translation in the field of law, then a short theoretical background of the research, and then the empirical part where I will report on the findings of our contrastive analysis of errors in machine translation based on two available and most popular machine translators available online and free of charge, and then discussion and conclusion. So it is important to start with these specific features of the language of law when we speak of translation in the language of law, because it has a great influence on the quality of translation. So here we can see the definition by Susan Šarčević, who said that translation of legal text was an act of communication in the mechanism of law which leads to legal effects and may induce peace or prompt war. This is very important, and it stresses, in fact, how far the consequences of legal translation can be. It was for the first time in 1970s when the translation was observed as a socio-cultural, or from socio-cultural aspect, and the target culture and extra-linguistic factors were for the first time seen as decisive factors influencing the translation process. And this was especially important for the field of law. In that context, we should mention Katharina Reis and Hans Vermeer, who said that translation was a specific type of cultural transfer, and it especially reflects to the field of law, because translation in the field of law is always a translation from one legal system into another, and from one culture into another, which can, in fact, differ a lot. Okay. So there are also specific competencies of translator in the field of law, and I have chosen here two most prominent linguists who dealt with the language of law in their work, Kelly and Susan Šarčević. So according to Kelly, translators' competencies include not only the knowledge of the source language and the target language, but also communicative and textual subcompetence, cultural and intercultural subcompetence, professional and instrumental, psychophysiological subcompetence, strategic subject area subcompetence, and interpersonal subcompetence. Susan Šarčević added some more for the field of law, like the knowledge of legal terminology, in-depth understanding of topical principles, and of logical reasoning, the ability of problem solving, ability of text analysis, and the knowledge of the target legal system and the source legal system. And I'm sure if they were writing their books today, that both of them would mention also the knowledge of modern technologies. So for the theoretical background, I'm going to say something about machine translation. The achievements of computer technology have made machine translation more available and more efficient in terms of time and money. And in a modern multilingual and multicultural communities like the EU, machine translation, the use of machine translation is indispensable for the functioning of such communities. So we are witnesses that machine translation has been broadly used for both for business and private purposes, and this usefulness and practical value of machine translation is unquestionable. But the problem are in fact numerous objections relating to different types of errors occurring in machine translation. So the goal of our presentation, of our paper, is to analyze machine translations from German into Croatian, performed by Google Translator and Microsoft Bing Translator, by using a contrastive approach in order to evaluate the quality of those translations. And the methodology that we used is in fact creating a reliable error taxonomy, which was built by combining two existing and, as we thought, most applicable for the language of law. And so by using a contrastive analysis of the errors, we conducted both quantitative and qualitative analysis. So our hypothesis, knowing all the specific features of the legal translation, was that machine translation in the field of law requires the interference of human translators who possess extra linguistic knowledge, and it is necessary at least in the post-editing phase of translation. So in recent years, there have been some researches conducted in the developing of error categories, and the purpose of this research was to evaluate the quality of specific machine translators that were available online, and also to develop programs that produce a score based on the similarity between the reference text, official reference text translations, and the translation output by using that error categorization. So the automatic evaluation of errors is faster, cheaper, and more consistent than human. And so a number of automatic evaluation metrics have been investigated. And as example, I can mention the CHRF system developed by Maja Popovic. So in recent years, there were a number of authors who have developed their own error typologies. So we can mention most simple ones like Villars, Faros's, and also that of Kirchhoff, which was presented by colleague Varga, and also by Costa and Popovic, who we have, so the error taxonomy developed by both of them, we have combined for our research. So the question that we asked at the beginning of our research was, what are particular advantages and disadvantages of the specific translation system, and which errors indicate most striking problems of a specific translation system? So this refers to Google Translate and Bing. So our main idea was to analyze the efficiency of machine translators, Google Translate and Microsoft Bing. And the corpus of analysis was built of 4 different legal texts excerpted from one EU agreement. So you can see its German name is rather long. I'm not going to read it. So Übereinkommen zwischen den Regierungen der Staaten der Benelux, and so on. So the error taxonomy that we used was a combination of the taxonomy by Costa and Popovic. So Costa's typology was rather simple, but it comprises the basic elements that are in fact a part of most taxonomies. And we also combined it with taxonomy by Popovich, who inserted the element of terminology, which is very important for the language of law, as well as detailed analysis of morphological and grammar errors such as tense, number, person, case, gender, parts of speech, and so on. So you can see here level 1 and level 2. So orthography, lexis, grammar, morphology, syntax, semantic, discourse, and the part that I have underlined on the level 2 are mistranslation, terminology, and then within morphology, errors, tense, person, case, number, gender, as elements introduced by Popovich. So now the contrastive analysis of errors in machine translations. So here is the link that we have taken, we have excerpted the original text in German from the EURLEX databases. And here is the original text. So it was a chapter, or in fact, a part of that agreement. And so here you can see the translations by Google Translate and Microsoft Bing, and we have so highlighted the problems here. So you can see at first that Google Translate has more errors. At first, it has problems with this culture-bound things as that I mentioned in the beginning. So Google Translate obviously does not know the Croatian mnemotechnical tradition in law giving, which includes the fact that articles are ordinal numbers. So there is no point at the end of the number. Also, the usage of present tense or present passive as also one of the legal traditions in proscribing norms in Croatian law is not recognized by Google, so they use simple future. Also problems with specific collocations. Granice prijelaza is wrong collocation. Also the formulation unutar granica izuzeća is not quite correct in semantic way. Also the phrase korisnička skupina is rather the term from communication technologies rather than law. So in Bing we can see komuna, so as archaic expression for općine, and one phrase used wrongly. Interestingly, as a reference text, we used official human translation, but we have spotted also several problems there. I think that the problem here is in fact the fact that the translations were at the early stages of developing a Croatian terminological database for the EU. And you can see, in fact, the intention of the translator to explain logically the whole paragraph. And so we can see the usage of additions na taj način, addition of ovlaštenih graničnih prijelaza and so on. So in other examples, we can also see that they tend to use more the prescribed phraseology and legal terminology, and also to clarify the meaning of the paragraphs. So here is the analysis of the first text. You can see different types of errors in Google Translate at the level of orthography, lexis, morphology, semantics. So in one occasion use wrong phrase, then also wrong collocations into.
1 more minute.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. I'm going to hurry up. So we have 4 texts. This is the second original text and translations. I'm not going to analyze every detail, only show the tables and the results. So again, Google Translate has many mistakes here. Morphology problem arises twice. Microsoft Bing has 6 errors here, but Google 8. Here is the third example, and here obviously it is a rather simple text, and so doesn't contain many complex sentences and terminology, so Google Translate had only 2 mistakes. Example 4, 2 errors in Microsoft Bing, and Google Translate had several grammatical problems, which astonished me, in fact. So noun-adjective congruence was problematic. Prepositional phrase was used instead of genitive case, and in this case, it changed completely the meaning of the sentence. And in the legal sense, it can lead to different legal effects if we think of personal problems or business situations. So it is problematic when such errors are made. So for the discussion, just shortly, this contrastive analysis of errors reveals different types of errors that are made by both the translators, but when counting these errors, it turned out that Google Translate had twice as many errors as Microsoft Bing. So in terms of the language quality, Bing had the better score, and Google had several errors at the level of grammar and morphology. So to conclude, the quality of machine translations available online is very important, and the errors occurring can impact the lives of their users in different ways when we speak of translation of legal texts. So contrastive analysis has shown that in the sense both of quality and quantity of these analyzed errors, Google Translate was in a worse position. And I just want at the end to mention the limitations of the study. Of course, we researched into a limited corpus, only of 4 texts. We analyzed only 1 language pair, and machine translator should master combinations of different language pairs. We used only 1 type of text, and maybe quite different results would have been achieved if we had used different combination of languages or larger sequences of the text or different branches of law. But I can conclude that although our contrastive analysis was conducted on limited corpus, it has highlighted some problems that should be solved by Google Translate. So
okay, thank you very much for the